degradation and the beautiful talk. It was way more than a talk from Eden. Thank you. This picture is from just down the road where I live. It's a little area of the Eastern Cape called Matatiele. I don't know if many people have heard about it. And it is renowned for degradation. The picture that Prof. Scholes showed of light areas with degradation, that's us. And what I want to talk about today is not focusing on what's not there, on this abyss and these wicked problems that we are surrounded with, but on what is there, the grass and the soil. This area of Matatiele is home to 250,000 very rural citizens. I'm one of them, and I'm not a very good speaker because I am quite rural, so forgive me in advance. Many of these people face daily livelihood challenges. It's very different from being in Joburg. It's always a wow for me to be in Joburg, because this is what we're used to. One of our biggest challenges is water. This is a little spring where hundreds, thousands of families collect water on a daily basis. They don't open taps because there aren't taps. This area, Matatiele, is just there. It's on the southern boundary of Lesotho. Is one of 22 strategic water source areas across southern Africa. These water source areas are less than 10% of our land surface and yet generate, more than 60% of our fresh water. And Nick's previous talk really honed it into me of how important it is to conserve this fresh water. So the taps you open today here in Midland come from this little area here, Katsi Dam, just over the mountains from my home in Lesotho. Our biggest export, though, is not water or social capital, it's soil. This is the mouth of the Uzulubi River going out at Port St. John's. Millions of tons of topsoil every year is what we are currently exporting. We need to turn this around. Another of our degradation challenges is alien invasive plants, the Australian wattle. Thanks Australians, but you can go home. I'm very xenophobic about Australian wattle. It is notorious for drinking surface water and degrading riparian areas. Another culprit, often blamed culprit for degradation, especially in the homeland, former homeland areas, is cattle, our cattle. These beautiful animals, when they are free range, quite often without management, are a big problem because they're removing the ground cover. They are not the problem though, we are the problem. And I want to go back to governance that Nick was talking about earlier, and collaboration that Ivan has just spoken about, that we are actually the problem. The landscape has eroded because our management and our governance is eroded. And we can bring this back by deploying an ancient human tactic called collaboration. We need to get together and break these boundaries that we have. Even just explained it so beautifully. So, about 20 years ago, I met a crazy Lesotho soil scientist, Matatiele, and we found that we had a common passion for mountains and music and a whole bunch of things, including people's livelihoods in mountain areas. And we formed a little social enterprise called Environment for Rural Solutions, which is based in Matatiele, with 9 other comrades, but alone we can't change the world. And we realized that we needed more collaboration. And we formed in 2013 the Uzulubi Catchment Partnership with a bunch of bigger brothers, bigger NGOs, getting municipalities on board, getting some of the bigger departments on board. And we think we're making changes, we hope we are. But our common currency that we got together around is stewardship. And if you look in the Oxford Dictionary, stewardship means taking care of something valuable. What is the big valuable thing in our landscape, in our supposedly degraded landscape? Again, cattle. Cattle are an integral part of economies right across the African continent. They are milk, they are meat, they are draft for agriculture, they are dung and nutrient recycling. They're also a very important part of traditional ceremonies. We slaughter them for funerals. They count as lobola, which is like a dowry or bride price for weddings. They're super important, but they're also blamed for degradation. So how do we govern cattle better on the landscape? What is within our control is community mobilization and capacity building and providing market access to add yet another element to this widget of wealth, these beautiful cattle that wander our landscape. And what we have found, I used to think this was just theoretical, but it's actually panning out now, is if we put these bits in, we mobilize and we build capacity, we provide market access for livestock and for alien plant biomass, we land up with better governance, better husbandry of those animals and the landscape, which gives us a more productive landscape, which generates household returns. Everyone will know that. She lived on a farm. She produced off the landscape. That gives us improved rural livelihoods. And if those are improving, we have this beautiful virtuous cycle which goes back to good stewardship of that very landscape that people are using for their livelihoods. Healthy ecosystems and water recharge, a more productive landscape. So by collaborating with a couple of other NGOs, Conservation South Africa, WWF, Meat Naturally, we have established a mobile auction system in the rural areas of the Northeastern Cape around the Matatiele area. They're wonderful events, they're like festivals. And basically they bring the markets to where the cattle are produced. These farmers were not taking their cattle to market because it was a 2-day walk and you got in the back of the queue and you paid a high percentage commission rate on the cattle. So what we did was we brought the market to the farmers. In exchange for farmers restoring an indigenous rotational management system on the land, so it wasn't free-range cattle doing whatever they like all the time and eating everything. It was bringing back a traditional system called mabuela, which is basically a rotational rest system. And a lot of the old people said, oh, we can do that, we used to do that, we can do it again. And it's been incredible how just bringing a little tweak around a common currency of cattle has inspired so many people to steward their land better. What's come out of it is that over 500 families are generating more than $3,500 a year. That may not sound like a lot, but people in this area live on under $20 a day. This is a huge input to these rural areas. The turnover from just short of 30 auctions to date in the last 5 years is over 25 million. That's a lot of dollars when you translate it, especially with the current South African exchange rate. Very importantly for us is, this 750 jobs. That's people working from home being farmers, not traveling to Joburg or other cities and becoming migrant workers. The farmers also think it's great. These are some perceived improved rangeland quality, satisfaction with auction prices. So it's not just us facilitators who think it's great, the farmers are actually finding it great. Some other outputs that we're finding, other than the work from home, which allows social fabric to be maintained and families to not be broken up, is we have 85 trained paravents. People normally don't have access to livestock husbandry support in these rural areas, and they now have young people trained, wandering around, helping them improve their cattle, diagnose diseases, and support their farming businesses. We're restoring the rangelands. We're getting ground cover back, which is giving us more effective rainfall and recharge into our strategic water source area, and carbon storage. I'm not a climate change expert, but I know we need to sequestrate carbon, and grasslands are really great at doing that. Felt-raised meat rather than industrial farm-raised pigs or feedlot cattle. There's a whole debate around that. Would you rather eat hormones or would you rather eat grass? I know which one I'd choose. Free range also has a way lower water footprint. I read a statistic recently that the high-intensity dryland areas where cattle are produced in feedlots, end-point kilogram of beef requires 2,000 litres of water to produce. These cattle on our landscape are requiring about 15 litres to produce, and that's just for the abattoir process. So there's a lot to be said for free-range beef. Bob spoke a little bit earlier about community work programs, the working force. We've had quite a crisis in South Africa, very stop-start. They're wonderful programs, they've been going for over 20 years, but we're losing ground. We have more alien plant hectarage than we did 20 years ago. This is a crisis, guys. It's drinking our water. So while we have opportunities for job creation, we actually are falling behind. And we've used this crisis, it's quite a long story, but we've used cattle as part of the crisis. By clearing, the Working for Waters pay people to clear. If we don't have money to pay people, how else do we clear? We make charcoal. Have lemons, make lemonade. Have alien plants, make charcoal. And this has given people an incentive to actually clear wattle, the Australian invasive species, off the landscape and restore it to grassland, which is what we want here, which absorbs rainfall, feeds cattle, sequestrates carbon, stops our soil washing away. And
part of the involvement of these young people has been managing cattle in communal herds again. And importantly, our communal herd forms less than 50% of our national herd, and it's only sending or only contributing 5% of the South African beef market. So there's a huge incentive for people to manage cattle better, both to sell them for cash, but also to use them as land tractors. This area was cleared from invasive aliens, and we then kraaled cattle on it, and those beautiful little cloven hooves and all that dung basically recreated soil and ground cover. And this control site was where nothing happened. You can see it's like red concrete, the rain can't infiltrate, it washes the soil away, and the wattle is coming back. So involving local farmers, local NGOs, local students as citizen scientists in monitoring what's going on here is teaching us a lot more about how we can do it better. These youngsters have become involved in our local green economy, and they are actually measuring grassland, and they're starting to measure water output from these improved grasslands. They're selling charcoal, they're getting involved as mountain rangers in a protected area along our watershed, and from having no self-esteem, when we interviewed these youngsters, they couldn't even look at us. They're now standing 4 inches taller. They can use computers, they're citizen scientists, they're earning income for their families. It's wow. So we think us little band of comrades in the corner of Eastern Cape and Matatiele are actually ticking quite a few of the SDG boxes, and I'm not going to go into detail of SDGs because I'm being told my time's up despite talking really fast. And again, the main thing here is partnerships for these goals. Our Umzimbi Catchment Partnership has just taken us to another level and been so powerful. And in closing, if I can just remind you of 3 things, 3 lessons that we've had. It's the local currency, ours was cattle, but find that currency that you can collaborate, the second item, collaborate around. Civil society can change society through collaborating. And thirdly, as Roche stole my thunder, never squander a good crisis. Turn it around. There's always a flip side. Where that donga sits, there's always land around the donga. So in closing, thank you for the time, thank you for listening, and please focus on the strong and not the wrong. Thank you.